This week on the Veterans Voice podcast.
It took me a minute, but I eventually grabbed my sister because that's what my dad taught me to do was before every deployment, he would say, hey, you're the man. You take care of your mom. You take care of your sister, your brother. So that's just kind of where my head went. I was like, I got to take care of my sister.
I said the same thing to my son every time I leave. You're the man of the house. You got to take care of mom. And you had a time where, I'm sure you wanted to break down and you wanted to lie down on the ground and scream, but you stepped up and you took care of your sister at that exact moment and then got home as quick as you could to help take care of your mom. And I think that just really speaks volumes for what your dad has instilled in you.
I've definitely changed for the better.
Stryder Sartor honors his father, Sergeant Major Ryan Sartor, by sharing the legacy and inspirational attributes he passed down to him in 2019. We'll hear Stryder talk with Colin Lightfoot, who looked up to Sergeant Major Sartor as a mentor during his younger years as a Green Beret. Stryder also tells us about how he is now acting as a mentor for younger Gold Star children at A Soldier's Child, a summer camp-based foundation who supports children who lost a parent in the military. A common theme you'll hear throughout the episode, Stryder Sartor, who is now 20 years old, is a truly inspirational young man. Our mission here on the Veterans Voice podcast is to remind you all that you're not alone. As you hear through the stories of our guests each and every week, we have all struggled, we have all turned to poor outlets to cope with life, and we have all felt alone at times. But these are the reasons we need to all be there for one another within the veteran community, a community whose voice is needed in America more than ever. This is the Veterans Voice podcast, and this is a reminder that you're not alone.
USAA is proudly celebrating 100 years of serving the military community. It was a group of soldiers who launched USAA in 1922 by joining together to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to more than 13 million members strong. And through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. Find out more at usaa.com/100.
Here with Stryder Sartor. Tried to have you on last month, but you obviously big college student here going to Texas A&M.
Yep.
You're going to be starting your senior year coming up.
Yep.
So we grabbed you right when you came home for summer. So we're super happy you came in, man. Super happy to come on.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be on here.
Yeah. So Military Child Month was last month, and we had a bunch of different guests on, but this one's really special to me. One, because your mom has been working with my other foundation, the Special Forces Foundation, for almost as long as I have, and because of your dad. So Stryder's father was KIA back in 2019. What month?
July 13th.
Yeah, July 13th, 2019. Phenomenal human being in the Special Forces world. He was a company sergeant major that went out with the guys all the time. I'm still yet to meet someone who has anything, halfway negative to say about him. I mean, just a phenomenal NCO, phenomenal Green Beret, and tough loss for the regiment. So tell me a little bit about it, like your memories.
He was tough. One, that's like the biggest thing I remember, but I also know that he loved me and showed in that way. He taught me so much about how to live and how to be a man, even from when I was little. Just playing football. He expected me to be the hardest working out there, and if I made a mistake, you got to fix it. But whenever he made something good happen, he also celebrated with me. He was proud of me. So
that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about you, like growing up as a military child, growing up as a son of a Green Beret, especially a sergeant major, someone that was at his level. I know you guys were stationed in Germany for a little while, same time we were there. What was that like? What are your memories as a kid? I mean, from the farthest back you can think.
Really, the earliest memory I have is actually kind of a sad one. It's he left on a deployment to Iraq, and I was in second grade. And like a month in, I was just sitting in class in second grade. I just like broke down crying because I think that was like my first time as a child realizing like something could seriously happen. Like my dad isn't like, he's not like deployed where he's not really doing anything. He's actually fighting, like something could happen. And I just broke down in class and got some therapy then, and then, you know, got happier. And as the deployments kept coming, because, you know, he did 9 combat deployments, I kind of got used to it. I know I was always sad when he left, but I stopped fearing that anything bad would happen. And I just enjoyed the time when he was home because, you know, he was always made it a priority to spend time with me and my brother and sister, my mom. We'd go camping, just anything we could do when he was home. He was all about family. So
that's awesome. Yeah, my son's in second grade now. You know, I just retired, and that was one of the big decisions of me getting out was, you know, that second grade, that 7 years old, 6, 7, 8 years old is when, you know, they're really cognizant of, my son's like super cognizant of like what I did and what I was going to do and how long I was going to be gone. Because I mean, when I left when he was super young, obviously it was sad for me, but he didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So that I just kind of got tired of leaving him, and I wanted to be around for him. So yeah, that's tough at that age. And how about your brother and sister? Were they, you know, when did you notice them starting to be a little bit more cognizant?
Grace was probably around the same age as me, like 8 years old, and she's a daddy's girl. So she always was really sad when he left. Garrett, not so much. Just he was 10 when my dad passed, and even then it was like, I feel like for him it was hard to understand what was going on. Like, yeah, he knew what was going on, but it wasn't like he couldn't fully wrap his head around it. And Garrett's always been kind of a free spirit. So it's
Garrett's awesome. Yes, he is. He's definitely the baby of the family.
He is. He just kind of floats around, does what he wants, and very nonchalant about everything. So for him, I never saw like when he was leaving for deployment, like he'd get sad, but it wasn't like me or Grace really.
Yeah. How many deployments did were you around for?
I was born while he was on his first deployment.
Okay.
So he got special permission to come back home on his first deployment. I don't know how that worked. I think someone kind of finessed their way.
It depends. You know, being in special forces, obviously we got a little bit more autonomy to make choices. If it wasn't a dire need, we always tried really hard to get the guys back for their families.
He wasn't in special forces yet. I think. I think my mom or one of her friends talked to Red Cross and like kind of exaggerated the situation of my birth.
Yeah. Your mom's awesome.
Yeah, I think my mom exaggerated. I think she said that like there was some complications. There's not complications, but she said that. So my dad got to come home for, I think, like 5 days, see me get born, and then he went right back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was there for every one of them.
Wow.
Don't remember all of them, obviously.
Yeah. Because I mean, there was a while. What year were you born?
2003.
2003, yeah. I mean, from that time up until about 2011, 2012, I mean, 10th group was back-to-back every 6 months.
Yep.
Going to Iraq, and it was tough on families. But you see those families like yours that made it through them together, how resilient they are, you know? Like, I've been around you guys for the last few years, and just the resiliency that you and your brother and sister have and your mother, obviously, because your mom is tough.
My mom is the strongest woman I know. I mean, she scares me still. She scares my friends, and my friends will admit that to you.
She scares me. I work with her all the time.
A couple of years ago, she got a text from one of her friends, and her friend was saying that Green Berets would text my mom's friend instead of her because they were afraid to text her. And this is like Green Berets.
And I hope she's okay with saying this, and I might ask her before we release this, but she told me about, you know, the day that they showed up for the announcement, and her first response was basically, "F you, get out of my door." And then she slammed the door in their face. And it's like, I mean, you don't meet a lot of women like that, man. Like most are going to break down crying. Most are gonna, before they even get to the door. And your mom was like, not today, not today. And but yeah, she's that, and that resiliency shows in you guys, man. It really does. And I love when you guys come out to the events. I love when you guys are around because you guys are always super helpful. You guys are always running around doing things, and it just makes a huge difference. So we appreciate you for that, and love to get you in with some Mount Carmel stuff too. We'll take you over to the office when we get done over here and show you.
That'd be awesome.
Show you and introduce you to Bob and Paul. But the military family is such a different thing than the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, do you see that a lot with your friends and just how different you guys interact and just are?
Yeah. To be fair, a lot of my friends right now are from military, especially here in Colorado Springs, because it's such a big military hub. A lot of my friends from high school, the ones I really connected with, were military because they understood what kind of, even on a simpler side, like just moving around or your dad's gone or whatever. But the friends I have that aren't military, it's when I try to explain it to them, it's like they don't understand what is happening. Yeah, they kind of get like their mind blown on. I'm like, oh yeah, my dad was gone for 8 years of my life, and he's still a great dad. Yeah, he was always he always wanted to be a part of my life and was very good at it, but he was still gone for 8 years, and they can't believe that, or they can't believe moving, for some families it's 8-9 times.
Every 3 years for most. Non-SF, it's every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, my family got really lucky with I only really remember Colorado and Germany. Okay. So just 2 moves that I remember, but for most military it's a lot different than that.
Yeah, that's one good thing about Special Forces is there's really only... Well, for 10th group and for first group, there's, for the most part, 3 places you can move. And every other active duty group, there's only 2. I mean, you go back to SWIC, back to North Carolina, or you go to group. So, but reason why it's different for 1st and 10th group is because they both have forward deployed battalions. First Battalion, 1st group is in Okinawa, Japan, and then 1st Battalion, 10th group is in Stuttgart, Germany. So you have that opportunity or option, or unfortunately for some people that don't want to go, you have to kind of do your time everywhere. But we loved it. I mean, Germany we extended for a year and just had the greatest time. Our son had more stamps in his passport by the time he was 6 months old than any of my friends have ever seen. Yeah. I'm sure you had the same.
Yeah, I did. I think I hit 20 countries while living there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's another thing with military families. Like how many people that aren't absolute millionaires can say that they've traveled to 20 different countries?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I remember getting back from Italy and being like going through the pictures and being around yachts and being in these awesome hotels. And it's like, we lived the life of a movie star.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
That's because we didn't say no, like that's like your mom and dad. They never said no. Let's get out and travel. Let's go see the world. Let's not sit on the couch while we're here. It changed my life. It changed me. I'm sure it adds something to your life that not a lot of people get to see.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a totally different viewpoint from a lot of people because I've actually seen so many different things. Like it's not just America out there,
Yeah, right. And you get those people that come over to Germany and they're like, "This place sucks. It's not like America." I'm like, "Yeah, no. it's a different country."
We were like that for the first. I want to say the first 9 months.
Yeah. Yep.
We were like that. And then we were like, okay. And now we started traveling, started actually getting to know people. And we're like, okay, this is actually great. And by the end of the 3 years, we're like, we loved it.
Yeah.
It was great here.
Yeah, I think that's about right. 6 to 9 months and sometimes even a year for some people. Just getting used to that. Like just even going into a restaurant and your waiter or waitress is like, you have to track them down. They're not going to bother you because it's not because they're being rude. They want you to enjoy your meal in silence.
Yeah.
Like when you come back to the States here, you're like, they set your plate down, they do a circle and ask you how your food was. And I'm like, I haven't even taken a bite yet. Like, leave me alone. And I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's just, when you get back here, you're like, hey, come back in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, give me a break. But then when you first got to Germany, you're like, why is this lady being so rude? Like, why is our waiter being like, you have to literally track them down.
Yeah.
You kind of realize the culture difference there. And they don't get tips either for the most part.
Yeah. No, it's really cool there though. I think truthfully, my favorite part of living in Germany though, and this is from the military kid, is now that I have friends that live all over. Like I had friends that were, I had 2 friends that went to Africa after Germany, California, Texas, Florida, Virginia. I mean, I know people everywhere.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not a lot of people that can say that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. What was your favorite country to go to?
Croatia.
Oh, yes.
Croatia was great. The food, I love food. Like a lot of people, but I really love food, and the food there was amazing.
The seafood there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So good.
Yeah, we did Dubrovnik and Split when we were there. And one cool thing that, me and the guys on the team, when we were out there, like we can say, oh, my favorite country to travel to is this. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. But then you start talking about the city itself and you're like, oh, have you been to this bar? Have you been to this bar? Or have you been to this restaurant? Have you been to this restaurant? And you're talking about Prague, or you're talking about Budapest, or Split, Croatia. And you're like, I've been to these places so many times I can describe my favorite place within the place instead of just like.
Just the country.
Yeah, just the country. So it's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was your worst country? Or city, country, whatever.
Worst. I don't know if there was one that I really like disliked. One of the worst. It was when we went to Prague, great city, and I did love it there. But it was the trip itself. Yeah, was like a disaster. It was the hottest recorded 3 days in European history.
Oh, I think I know what year. Was that like 2017?
16 or 17.
16 or 17, yeah.
And it was so hot that they were bringing the government was bringing water trucks to the town square.
Yeah.
And we so happened to book a hotel, top floor, no windows, no fans, nothing. And we were sitting, that was
People
hot.
were dying because they don't have air conditioner over there.
They don't.
People were dying. Like, it was insane. We found a lake. Do you remember the town of Tübingen?
Yes. Yep.
So there's a lake outside of the town of Tübingen. It was like a nude lake. It was all 80-year-old men. but we went there. We'd stay there all weekend and just never get out of the water because that summer was so hot.
It was brutally hot. And those 3 days in Prague, like we were doing like 10-mile tours.
Yeah.
Walk around.
I'm sure your dad was walking you to death.
Dad, it is like 46, 47 degrees Celsius right now. That's like 118. Like, this is ridiculous. Can we please go inside? And eventually he actually broke at the end. He was like, we're going to stay in the Marriott with AC. And I was like,
thank God.
Hallelujah.
We did, when we were in Dubrovnik, I remember it was in the high 90s, and they had that old town, the old city.
Yep.
The walled-in city, and all the floor there is like marble. And the heat radiating off that marble, like, it's the coolest thing. I mean, it was Game of Thrones where they filmed some of Game of Thrones there, and we wanted to walk around it so much, but we only saw like a quarter of it because we would like get out, walk like 4 stores and hop back into another one and have a drink. Because it was just so miserably hot. We were just like, this sucks. And then we rented a boat tour just to get out on the water because it was just like, man. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. It's awesome to be able to talk about that stuff.
Yep.
Especially for you at like such a young age,
I know.
How old were you when you were there? You're what, 17 now? Or no, sorry, you're 20.
I'm 20. Yeah. So I was 11 when we moved there and came back at 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So how about your brother and sister? I mean, do they remember? I'm sure Garrett doesn't remember a lot of Germany.
He remembers a good amount, especially like the big places. He remember, Rome and Paris. All of our family loved Croatia and Prague.
Yeah.
So he remembers the big ones. And then Grace, she has a weirdly good memory for stuff like that. So she remembers like everything.
Wow.
And I'm the opposite. I have a horrible memory. So Grace and Garrett will be like, do you remember this trip where we went a week in like this city? And I'm like, no, I don't even remember going there.
What's the name of that again?
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Do you think you're going to join the military?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I tell everyone that if World War III breaks out, that I'll go join. But right now, no.
Yeah. I'm also kind of indifferent about my son. I'd like for him to do something, some sort of service, whether it be civil, whether it be National Guard, whether it be, active duty military, just because of how much it changed my life. But I also see I got out of the military for a reason. One of the reasons was I saw it going in a direction that was not something I agreed with. So, and I think your dad would probably have the same sentiment.
Yeah.
Of like, I want him to, because of the benefits, the mentality. But the mentality also now is a lot different than when I joined.
Yes. Honestly, my dad told me he didn't want me to join.
Really?
Yeah. He told me no. And that he told me if I did join, to join the Air Force.
Yep. That's the same thing.
But also, if I joined the Air Force, he probably would have kicked my ass. So, but yeah,
that's hilarious.
Kind of stuck in a lose-lose situation there.
He's like, want you to join the Air Force, but if you do, you're going to get beat up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And then a lot of my dad's friends who I've known for some of them since I was born, they tell me the exact same thing.
Yeah.
They don't want me to join. I think my dad pretty much instilled in me that the military mentality pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't have all of it, of course, but...
yeah, and I think, obviously you were old enough when everything happened that you got quite a bit of that. You being the oldest, one, you get, as the oldest child is usually most disciplined, because as a parent, I'll tell you, as you go down the line, you get tireder and more tired. In the baby, I was the baby, so I got away with everything.
Yeah,
and my oldest sister got the, she got it all. So I think you get that, and then plus your dad being a sergeant major when you were that age, you've already seen all the ranks that he's going to go through, and you see how he's changed and matured, as how he's changed and matured as an NCO, as a leader, and as a senior leader. I'm sure you saw that him change throughout those times quite a bit, and probably got a little more strict as time went, or not.
I think it, at least for strict towards me, he kind of stayed the same. I want to say even since when he just joined, he always had that leader mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work the hardest. I'm going to be strict on my guys, even if I'm not the leader of my team or whatever. I'm going to be strict. When he was going through selection, or not even selection, I think it was basic. His nickname was Sergeant Major Sartor.
Wow,
as an
crazy.
E1, because everyone knew he was the leader. He was the guy.
That's cool. That's amazing.
So he kind of always had that strict mentality. We're gonna do things right. We're gonna.
And, from everything I've heard, he was easy to follow.
Yes.
He was, everybody I've talked to was like, yeah, I'd follow him into hell. You knew he was going to make the right decision. You knew he was going to have your back with anything that happened. He was just a phenomenal leader. That's the number one thing I hear about your dad all the time, is just how amazing of a leader he was. For gosh sakes, he was out with the boys, and I heard that he would go out at least once or twice a week with the guys in Afghanistan as the company sergeant major.
Yep.
As a company sergeant major, you don't have to go out at all. You don't have to go out. Especially someone who has 9 combat tours. He's seen it all, but still he's like, I'm going to be there with the guys. And that's just so commendable. That within itself is just such a commendable attribute and mentality to have.
I think part of that too is what you were just saying earlier, the mentality in the military is changing, is that he did see that, and he was trying to keep that, instill the old mentality into those guys. And a lot of them have got that from him. If you talk to Gonzo or Colin Lightfoot or a lot of the guys that were under him who are now taking teams, they're taking the same lessons they learned from my dad and instilling them to their guys.
Yeah, Colin, I just had a conversation with him yesterday, and he just got done with his team sergeant time, and he was another one of those just phenomenal leaders. And he learned, and he'll even say he learned it from your dad.
Yeah.
And that's just so awesome to hear. Colorado Computer Support. Imagine never having to worry about your information systems ever again. Colorado Computer Support, the exclusive Veterans Voice technology partner meeting all of our computing needs. Colorado Computer Support is veteran-owned. They're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. When you need IT services to keep your business going, make sure the Colorado Computer Support team is on your team. Call 719-355-2440. To learn more, that's 719-355-2440.
The Veterans Voice is sponsored in part by Optum and is produced in the Optum Podcast Studio. Optum and Mountain View Medical Group offer 15 clinics throughout the Pikes Peak region. Their primary and specialty care doctors provide quality, patient-centered care backed by Optum's industry-leading health services and technology. They're dedicated to helping our community live healthier while keeping care affordable. Visit optum.com/Colorado to learn more and schedule your appointment today.
Man, we should have had them. Should have had somebody that was on your dad's team. And during this, I just talked to Colin yesterday. Well, we should just call him right now. Like, what are you doing? Get in here. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Hey, say hi to Colin.
How's it going, Colin?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. So we're that's Stryder. So
What's up, Stryder? Good to hear from you.
I know, it's been a minute.
So we used the phone a friend for the podcast here, and we called in Colin Lightfoot, who was on a team with Ryan. And what years were you on his team?
2009 through 2013.
Okay.
On a couple of different teams, actually. With him.
And was he your team sergeant at one time?
No, he was actually my very first senior.
Okay.
When we were on 215 for a small bit until he got promoted pretty early and then took over his first team as a team sergeant.
Mm-hmm. So one of the main reasons we brought Stryder in here is for Military Child Month and just him growing up as a military son, and then obviously with what happened in 2019, how that's affected his life. And but we start talking about leadership, and we start talking about how amazing Ryan was, and everybody said that they'd follow him anywhere, and just his mentality as your senior.
Right.
What are some of the things that you learned from Ryan and how he helped you out your military career?
Yeah, so first I'll preface it with Ryan was essentially my first role model, not only like in the military, but just in life. So like I was young, naive, green thumb. So I came in there with little experience. And I think the biggest thing I remember from him is initially his cool, calm composure, pretty much in all the moments of chaos. So, you come in green thumb, not knowing what to expect. Things can go very fast. But when you have someone like that to look up to, and you can kind of just use him as a reference, like, man, in the moment of chaos, in the moment of, the world falling apart around you, just looking to him and just seeing the stoicism, how stoic he was, but also how confident he was.
Mm-hmm. Stryder, is that something that you saw as a son?
Most definitely. Many times I remember guys going to my dad for advice, even with things non-military related. Yeah. The role model thing, which he said, is something that I saw constantly, and a lot of guys have told me that like my dad was their role model, even if they were the same age. Yeah, and that I'm starting to see that within you, and you coming out to the events and stuff, and obviously your mom. We were talking about how BA Deanna is.
Yeah.
But I see that in you guys. Colin, how about as Ryan? I mean, how much interaction did you see him as being a father? And
so yeah, like obviously when I was young, I wasn't married, didn't have kids, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I remember early on, I always say, like, as amazing as he was as a Green Beret, he was able to kind of have that harmony and that balance with his family. So I would say, as great as he was as a GB and a senior, it was even more important to learn through just watching him as a father and a husband. Because as we all know, there can be some murky relationships in this community, but he stood above the rest. Everything he did, and as long as he was in, and as much of a great leader he was still able to give even more to that than to his family. So now that I'm older and have a family, I always think back of it can be chaotic on the work side, but you got to give even more on the family side. He's a great example of that.
Yeah. The Green Berets we're taught to live in a gray area, right? There's not a lot of black and white with everything we do. But when you see someone, they go home and apply that black and white, right? Like this, okay, now I'm dad mode and I am a good husband. I'm a good father because like you said earlier, not everybody has that mentality. They bring that gray home with them and on deployments with them when it comes to families, and I'm not just saying Green Berets. There's a lot of people in this world that just don't have those moral values. So when you see that one guy on your team and your leader or your team sergeant that it has that morality and I'm gonna say it bluntly, doesn't cheat on their wife and doesn't and it takes the time to call their kids and their wife as many times and doesn't make stuff up to not have to call them. That morality is contagious.
Right, for sure. And we all know there's a certain stigma that comes along with this career field, and he was a perfect example to kind of turn that narrative around. There's also great men out here who prioritize their family, love a guy, love their family first and foremost for them. And then the military, as important it is to them in protecting their country, that's right behind the amount of effort and love they give to their family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it completely correlates, and I think
one thing I think about too is when you're young and new to this organization, you're kind of like a kid. You're impressionable, right?
Oh, 100%.
So when you have those seniors, especially the first one, they mold who you are. I can honestly say I am who I am today, both personally and professionally, because of men like Ryan.
Yeah.
I owe a lot to that man, both personally and professionally, because again, I roll a lot of the way I live my life as a family man based off of how he did.
Yeah. Stryder, how does that, not to get emotional or anything, but how does that make you feel to hear people like Colin, who is now a phenomenal leader in the Special Forces Regiment, talk about your dad like that?
It just makes me proud. Yeah. I mean, I always knew my dad was great, and I've heard so many guys say it, but every time I hear it, it makes me proud to know my dad. And
I mean, I never got the opportunity to meet your dad. I was out in Germany most of that time, and but I feel like between knowing you, knowing Colin, knowing your full family, I feel like I do kind of know him, and I don't know if that is not the right thing to say, but I
would argue that it is, right? Because that's how you continue the legacy. Is it's guys who served with them, and then are obviously family. It's pushing that information down, leading by an example. And then that way the generation who didn't know him can still, feel like they do through us. Because it's easy to say someone's name and talk about stories about them, but more importantly, living your life as a man and a GB in this organization based off of how they raised you, I think is one of the best things you can do to keep their legacy alive. There's that extra weight on your shoulders when legends and giants like that pass. You now have to assume that role and responsibility again, because you are representing them.
Yeah. And like you said, continuing that legacy. So we all have, you guys have this responsibility to continue that legacy. But for people, like you said, the giant that he was, you guys do an amazing job. And I think he made it pretty easy for you guys.
Yeah.
So
we always talk about, there's a path that we walk when you wear that patch, you wear that beret. There's a very unique path that we walk, and it's a very small minority that walks it, but it's people like Ryan, who built that path for us. So, blood, sweat, and tears, they built it so my generation, the generations behind me, can walk easily on that path, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for us, to take a moment and just kind of reflect on that, like the giants who built that path for us, and always remember who they were to this organization.
Yeah. Well said, man. Absolutely well said. And And that's cool that you and Stryder, you know, and Garrett and Deanna and like Grace, you guys can all still have this relationship and have these conversations, because for a lot of people, it's tough to have these conversations. You know, we talk on the podcast about Shadow the Silence and how, and I told Stryder before he came on here how, you know, you coming in here and talking about this stuff and talking about the hard parts and showing emotion through it. There's someone that could be listening on the other end that is isolating right now because of these things. And when you're isolating, you think you're going through these things by yourself, but telling your story and someone out there is listening, saying, oh man, someone else felt the same thing I felt. Someone else went through the same thing I went through. And you could potentially save a life by doing that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And even talking about his legacy, you know, there's guys out there that might be listening that knew your dad and are isolating still because of it, you know, and having a hard time because of it. But we come in here and, you know, they're listening and we talk about these, you know, all the positive things that he did and the type of man he was. Hopefully someone's listening to that out there, and we can talk about the positive things too. Yeah. You know, which again, your dad made it pretty easy to do.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, for sure. So, and that's like, it's really important to me when we have events like Memorial Day and just really any other event throughout the year when the family is able to come out, for us to be able to actually talk to them and tell them in front of everyone how much he meant to us. Because, you know, I'm sure after talking to Dan a few times, it's like they obviously love and look up to their father and their husband. But I think it's important for us to tell them, like, as important he was to you and as much as you loved him, we feel the same way about him in this community. So I just want them to know, like, he means so much to us and that family. You know, we're 100% here for all of them, no matter what, because of how important he was to us. We owe it to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Colin, I'm not going to keep you on the phone all day here.
I appreciate the call.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your words and I appreciate you coming on. We can phone a friend. And you know, you talking with Stryder is pretty awesome. So,
you know where to reach out. I'm working at the mod now, so it's pretty cool to, you know, start ending my career working under the name of Ryan Sartor in this building. So
that's awesome.
They named the MOD, Maritime, what is it?
Maritime Operational Attachment.
Yeah, they named that building after Ryan Sartor. So if you guys are ever on over at 10th Group Compound, check it out. It's a really, I mean, you can't, not supposed to go on there if you can't, but if you can, go check it out. It's pretty cool. So, all right, Colin, I appreciate it, brother. I'll give you a call later.
All right, sounds good, guys.
The Veterans Voice podcast is supported by Medicare Mentors. When it's time to consider your Medicare options, it's time to talk with Medicare Mentors. Medicare Mentors, powered by Spark, is veteran-owned and a long-standing partner with Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center. More than that, they go above and beyond to make sure when you need them, they're there lending a helping hand. Medicare Mentors, always above and beyond. Visit MedicareMentorsLLC.com for more information.
Well, that was pretty awesome. I'm glad we got a chance to do that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Just having another viewpoint of that and just how it all syncs up, you know, the same things we're sitting here talking about. We just had another senior leader in the Special Forces Regiment echo the same things that you're saying, and watching you grow up as a kid was, I'm sure, you know, watching how your dad raised you and having someone from the outside looking in going, he was phenomenal at that too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the hard question, and this is for all the kids out there, all the Gold Star families out there. How did that day go when they came, and how has it changed your life?
So the hardest part for me was that I was not home.
Yeah.
Neither was Grace. So me and Grace were on a trip. We were in Minneapolis. And honestly, that day I was having a great day. And I remember sitting there probably 6 hours before. And I had a moment in my head. I was like, this is I'm having a great time. And I really enjoy my life right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't want things to change that day.
Wow.
And I got a text from my mom, and she was like, when you get back to your hotel, get with your pastor, and I'm going to call you and Grace on speaker. And Grace started freaking out. And I wasn't really freaking out because I was like, oh yeah, it's probably nothing. But Grace started freaking out, and she actually had, like, she told me, she was like, I think something happened to Dad.
Take your time.
And so, you know, we get back to the hotel, we get our pastor, and we go to the room. And I call my mom, and she just says the words, your dad's been shot. And he didn't make it. And I kind of froze, like just the absolute shock. I was completely still, yet shaking so bad. I was just like, almost like a seizure shaking. And my sister fell to the floor and screamed. And to me, that's like the saddest thing I've ever seen. It took me a minute, but I eventually grabbed my sister, because that's what my dad taught me to do is, before every deployment, he would say, hey, you're the man. You take care of your mom. You take care of your sister, your brother. So that's just kind of where my head went. I was like, I got to take care of my sister. We got that call from my mom at about midnight, and we were at the airport at 4 a.m. Coming home. I really wish I was there for my mom, because I know that for her it was really hard, but I'm glad that she had all the people around her in Colorado Springs that were there immediately. By the time I got home, which was at, 7 a.m. in the morning, I didn't even walk in the house yet, and our driveway's filled with cars. Green Berets, their families, family friends, my friends from high school. Everybody was there, and I'm really glad for that. But it was just shock for a long time. I didn't know how to react.
Yeah. Man, I've never been through anything like that, and like it's hard. I know it's hard to say, and I know it's hard for us to hear. But there's people out there that, have been through that with you, and that, really appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
How long did it take for the house to clear out? There's probably people there back to back to back for a while.
Months,
Yeah.
Truthfully. My grandparents came and lived with us. My mom's grandparents came and lived with us for 4 months. My mom had a friend who lived just down the street, and she was there every day. And then just different families from around Colorado Springs just came by all the time.
Yeah.
People like Bobby McCoy, he was with my dad, and he was after basically like the first team my dad was on before he was even a Green Beret. Bobby McCoy was there. And Bobby McCoy he flew from Hawaii and lived in Colorado for 2 years, came back because of that moment. And, just overwhelming support for my dad and for our family.
That's amazing. And that's what it takes. It takes these communities. It takes, even for someone who wasn't as well liked as your dad, there's still a lot of support out there. But for someone that with the caliber of your dad, it's the outpouring and the even what I saw was just amazing. So I got to thank the community for stepping up. But I do want to ask, was there ever a time where you're just like, I want the house to be empty. Like, please just leave us alone.
Yeah. And I think I didn't realize it at first because I was just so out of it for so long. Like,
the shock.
Yeah. But I think I didn't realize that that's what I think I needed at the time. I think my family too, we needed the house to be empty. But because there was so much going on, so much chaos and so many people around, I think for all four of us, we never actually had that time to just sit and breathe
and be with each other.
Yeah. So it took a long time for just that moment to finally come where you just get to sit and breathe and just us four be there and grieve. And just come to terms with it.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the most important parts of a situation like that is the acceptance piece. You know, that shock. You know, when someone that close to you, when someone passes away, is you know, and I can't even imagine being your father, like how long that shock period was, of like just not even wanting to accept it, not even understand it, not even like the whole sitting there saying why. You know, which I, you know, I've lost quite a few friends in the job, but never my dad. You know, my dad's still alive to this day, so I can't even imagine adding that into, you know, that scenario. And we are who we are because of our decisions and actions and everything that's happened in our life. You know, and I think your reaction and your story, telling about your reaction is again shows the caliber of your dad and what he did, because, you know, I said the same thing to my son every time I leave. You know, you're the man of the house. You got to take care of mom, and you had a time where, you know, I'm sure you wanted to break down and you wanted to lie down on the ground and scream, but you stepped up and you took care of your sister at that exact moment, and then got home as quick as you could to help take care of your mom. And I think that just really speaks volumes for what your dad has instilled in you.
Yeah.
And the man you are today, man, and keep growing. And you're a really impressive kid. I remember the first time meeting you, like, 2 years ago?
Yeah, about.
We were down in Dallas, and just impressed with, we were at an event at the
Hall of Fame
Health dinner at the Dallas Cowboys. Just how you carried yourself in that group of people, I was just impressed. I mean, I think the other guy that was with us carried himself worse than you, and he was a sergeant major in the Army. He got hammered drunk and was being really obnoxious. And I was like, look at this. You were, 18 at the time?
Yeah.
But I just remember being really, really impressed. I even said something to Gary. I was like, wow, the kid's really got his head on his shoulders. Like, just cool hanging out with you. But so, you know, we're 5 years later now. I know can't always be easy. I'm sure there's days they're really hard.
Yeah.
But then you have days like, you know, today where we can sit here and talk about them and celebrate. You know, obviously emotions are going to come out, but it's changed your life, obviously. But, you know, good, bad, both. How has this made you who you are today? Or is that even a question? You know, do you know? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, it is a tough question, but I've definitely changed for the better.
Good. It's cool you can say that too.
Yeah, I've matured so much. I think kind of before, when I was a sophomore in high school, about to be a junior. But I remember myself being kind of a cocky and angry kid. And
so you were a good football player too, right?
Yes.
You played in college for a little bit.
Yes, I did play college football, but I didn't have the humbleness that I think I needed.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the biggest things for me that I learned is, like, just the anger that I had. I had a lot of anger. I don't know why. There's no reason for me to be angry, but kind of had anger issues. And just the not being so cocky, like, still hold yourself with confidence, kind of like my dad would, you know, but at the same time be humble, know that you're not better than everyone else.
Yeah. I guess a situation like that, you know, it's a slap in the face of there's bigger stuff in the world.
Exactly.
There's more things. There's better reasons to be angry. There's better reasons. There's bigger reasons than you out there for being a cocky little arrogant mean kid, you know. Something like that happens and it's like, oh wow, like, oh, that now I actually have a reason to be sad, or now I actually have a reason to be mad.
Yeah.
All those reasons I was mad before, those aren't good reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, I was mad for probably around a little over 2 years afterwards. I was sad at times, you know, I'd have my moments, but for the most part I was just angry all the time, which I think is understandable
absolutely.
It's understandable, but
But you actually had a reason to be angry. I mean,
Yeah.
The world took your father away.
But it was to the point where like there's another foundation I work for called A Soldier's Child, and they do a bunch of summer camps for Gold Star kids. And I went on one it was in Texas, and Rock Springs, Texas is where it was at. And this is actually the point where this is one of the moments that like really changed me. They're a Christian-based foundation, but they're not super pushy with it. But being able to meet other Gold Star kids, or not even Gold Star, because they take any kid who lost a parent in the military,
surviving families.
just survivors, so suicide or sickness or whatever the case is. But being able to be around them showed me that, like, one, I wasn't alone, which is what we've already talked about. Like, you're not alone when you're going through this stuff.
That's what we try to portray on this podcast all the time, and like tell these stories.
And two, like, I realized that even though what I was going through is really hard, there's kids out there with much, much worse. Like, I got to know my dad for 16 years, and he instilled a lot in me, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm thankful that my dad is considered a hero, and that we get so much support and all these things. And there's some kids out there, I won't tell any stories, but there's some kids out there that I've met that are just the most heartbreaking stories.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's, thank God for those organizations too. And, that's what, working in this nonprofit world, I work for, Mount Carmel here, and then also Special Forces Foundation, and partnering with all these other nonprofits. And it's amazing that, there's kind of something out there for everybody. And it's cool that they're getting those kids together, because, that's one of our mission. That's our mission here on the podcast, is to, portray to the world that, hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And bringing people together to share these stories is just so important. You coming on here and sharing your story is just so important. But getting together with those kids, I'm sure is powerful.
It's a great experience. And, now I volunteer for them, and I go and be a mentor at their camps, and kind of their philosophy is like, once you're 18, instead of being a kid at the camp, you're now a mentor.
Oh, cool.
But when you have so when I'm mentoring a 10-year-old, and this 10-year-old is going through the same exact thing I'm going through, I mean, I'm actually able to help them. I understand what they're going through, and I'm able to, talk to them about it and get emotional with them. And they get to see, I mean, unfortunate, but there's 200 other kids at this one camp.
Wow.
And
holy cow.
Yeah, it's a lot of kids, and I wish it wasn't that way, but you get to see, like, that it's its own community in itself. And I have some very good friends that I've made through this camp. So,
Yeah, I'm sure that, that we talk about suicide on here, and I'm sure those kids that have dealt with suicide that's probably one of the tougher ones.
Yeah.
Because, that's, you commit suicide and you have kids, you're telling your kids that they weren't enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the big things you have to deal with. Is like, my dad left me, the dad wasn't taken away from me. He left me, or my mom, or, anything.
Yeah.
That's got to be the tough ones. And how do you respond to that? How do you sit there and say, no, you're good enough, man? Like, you're good enough. Like, because automatically they have to feel like they're not.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest ones we deal with. Usually, if I have a kid that is asking me that, I'll try to answer it. I'll try to give them the answers. But we have other mentors that their dad or mom committed suicide. So I'm like, hey, like, I want you to go talk to them, because they're going to be much better at helping you.
Well, it's amazing you volunteer your time for that, and we like to bring other nonprofits on here just for that specific reason, right? Of, like, sharing that knowledge, and there's a lot of people out there that have lost a parent that just isolate, take themselves away from the world, and be angry and deal with it their own way. But you're actually using a horrible incident in making it better and making the world better. And that's, again, I'll go back to talking about, your dad and your mom, and just what they've instilled within you with that, and just the resiliency of a military child that shit all says it right there, man. And that's absolutely amazing. How about counseling? Did you go through any counseling? Did you go through any, sit down sessions?
I did a little bit of therapy, but honestly, it didn't help me that much.
Yeah.
But I got therapy 4 years later.
Okay.
So, I was kind of past like all the big grief moments.
Yeah.
But I just don't think I had the right therapist or counseling. It just wasn't the right.
We can help with that. No, I understand.
Yeah.
A therapist is like a barber. If you go to a barber and they give you a crappy haircut, are you going to go back to them?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 therapists before you find someone you connect with. And it's really powerful when you do. It really is amazing. And it's super helpful. But what do you got going on now? What's your goals? What's your dreams? What do you want to do with your life?
So right now I'm at Texas A&M University. About to go into my senior year.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Not going to graduate at the end of this year. I'm a little behind.
Oh, yeah.
But that's about everyone in college nowadays. So
most people go to school for 9 years.
yeah.
I'm kidding. Yeah, they're called doctors.
No,
5 years is a very typical.
Yeah, so about 4.5, 5 years I'll be there. I'm in construction science, so just learning about construction.
You want to stay down in Texas when you get done? You want to come back up here?
I have not decided yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of bad at planning my future, to be honest. I do have an internship in Houston in the fall for a construction company.
I can probably get you an internship here. We'll talk about that after, though. But yeah, I have some connections with some construction companies here in Colorado, in Denver, that they would absolutely love to have you come on, and not because of your situation, but because of who you are. Honestly, you've showed me you're a hardworking kid, and but we can definitely work that out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, I forgot to warn you, but anytime anybody comes on. My tagline is "Tell me a story." It could be a funny story, be a funny story about your dad, your family, military in general, like just your life in the military. Just we do it to try to connect with listeners, All
right.
Because it's just a fun thing to do. So you got a good story?
I do. I had one come to my head about my dad. So this story was told to me by Bobby McCoy. Bobby McCoy is the co-star.
Yeah.
If anyone knew Bobby is a very unique human being. Anytime he's involved in anything, it's probably chaotic. It's really funny. Just the wild things are gonna happen with Bobby. But I think this was my dad's second or third deployment in Iraq, sometime around then. And at the time, I believe my dad was like the combat engineer, is what you call it. And so it's like 1 a.m. and the generator for their camp goes out. So it's my dad's job to go out there and fix it. And Bobby goes with my dad. And to set the scene, they're both just wearing Ranger panties. For people who know what those are,
little silky shorts.
They're tiny, tiny. So they walk out there in flip-flops and Ranger panties. And my dad goes to jumpstart the battery for the diesel generator and blows the battery and gets battery acid all over him. And so obviously my dad and Bobby they're like freaking out. And the closest place was the cafeteria. So they run into the cafeteria and Bobby starts grabbing cartons of chocolate milk. But it's like the school ones, the little ones, and just starts he's just like ripping them open and dumping them all over my dad. It starts rubbing. He's like massaging my dad in chocolate milk. And so, again, it's like 1 a.m. And so obviously like everyone at the camp heard the battery blow up and they're like, what the hell is going on? And so they run to the cafeteria and they just see Bobby just like massaging my dad in chocolate milk. And they're both standing there and just like their underwear pretty much. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I could only imagine walking in because they probably had midnight chow too. So there's probably a bunch of people in there too. Oh, that's hilarious, man. Your dad, I've heard some pretty amazing stories from your dad. Your mom told me one last week about something happened. They were in some country. I can't remember. I think they were in Germany. And something happened, I think with the Polizei or something, and he had to take off running. And they were in a parking garage.
Oh yes, I know the story too. Yeah.
He thought they were on the first floor, but they were on the second. He jumped. Had to take him to the hospital.
Yeah, he jumped over that ledge thinking I was on the first floor, and he like face planted into the roof of a car, and broke his nose.
Yeah, they took him to the hospital. He wakes up in the hospital and he's like, he hadn't told him that he was out, so he hadn't told him his name or anything. He just rips all the stuff out and just takes off running to the hospital.
Yep.
If your mom doesn't get mad, we tell that story. But I love hearing them, man, because I hear these leadership stories, and then I hear these funny stories too. So just the breadth of your dad was super funny and super awesome.
He had his moments, but yeah.
Well, Stryder, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for being honest and being emotional and telling your story, because it really means a lot to me. I love to hear about your dad as much as possible, because I unfortunately never got to meet him. Mm-hmm. And thank you. It's awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great being on here.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with Stryder Sartor. If you did, please share the podcast with friends and family via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you have guest recommendations for the show, please reach out to Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center at 719-772-7000.